Hi everyone, this is Jeff Queen. I'm a four-time World Championship snare drummer and an original cast member of the Broadway show Blast. Gilbert Garcia asked me to put a little video together explaining what percussion means to me. And I've got to say, playing drums, playing music is pretty much everything to me. I would not be where I am today in my life if it wasn't for my love for drums and percussion. Started playing drums when I was about 10, got into marching band when I was 14, got into drum corps when I was 16, and to this day, I'm still involved in the activity as a consultant or as a teacher, and still have a passion for playing drums. So everybody that's in my life that's not my blood family is a result of really being involved in drum corps or being involved in music. I met some amazing people along the way, some friends that I still hold dear to my heart in this day. My wife I met because of doing drum corps and performing. And like I said, pretty much everybody and almost everything that I have in my life is a result of my passion for playing drums. So I share this with you because regardless of what you want to do in your life, you're embarking on a journey by playing percussion, playing music that can stay with you for the rest of your life, and you can make a lot of great friends in the process. So what's cool is that everybody's like-minded. Everybody wants to play. Everybody's into the music, so you can share a lot through playing drums and playing music. So I urge you to stick with it. I urge you to take advantage of the events that are around you, like the Valley Percussion Festival. And I urge you to be curious and to continue to learn about the craft of music and playing drums. Best of luck to you, and happy drumming.
Hello. Hello, guys. Give me a quick second here, please. There we go. Guys, I really apologize. Um, we had to postpone the stream a little bit, 30 minutes, right? It's usually at 7, but I was having some tech trouble. This is the second time it happens. And despite the fact that I try and finagle with it about an hour, sometimes 2 hours before the stream, but we're here. Super stoked, super stoked. My name is Gilbert Garcia. I am the lucky and fortunate soul to be your host for Valley Percussion Festival Summer Series. And welcome to another episode. And boy, oh boy, we are in for such a treat today, guys. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Um, if you think it's going to be great, well, it's going to be above and beyond that. I promise you that. Um, I hope you guys had a great week. Hope that your weekend is kicking off great. Obviously, it is because we're here, we're hanging, we're talking percussion, and we're gonna learn a lot today. So, and hopefully, this pushes on and carries on the rest of our weekend. Um, what a season in drum corps this year! What a season! And talking to some of the guests today, we were talking about how incredible in such a short span of time, the level of playing, you know we were thinking, man, it's gonna probably be watered down a little bit. It's gonna be, something different, maybe a little bit lesser quality. And bam, it's beautiful to see, beautiful to see. And it's inspiring, whether you're a player, a performer, or a teacher. And it tells us, what as teachers we can achieve in a short period of time, despite obstacles. And it also lets us see what our students can do, because kids in drum corps are no different than kids in our studios, in our schools at home. So yes, um, without further ado, I am super proud, super stoked to have with us today the Cavalier front ensemble staff. Guys, uh, I want to say it now in public. I am super proud of the work that you guys delivered. It's, man, definitely, definitely. You guys, you hit it out of the ballpark, and it went over to the next zip code. That was beautiful, guys. That was beautiful, beautiful. And you guys are young. I can imagine what you're gonna do in a couple of years. It's gonna be ridiculous, ridiculous. So I'm sure I speak for everybody that's watching right now, and I'm sure everybody that's going to watch the replay will think the same. Uh, wow, Randy, Rick, Shelby, I'm proud to call you my friends, guys. I am proud to call you my friends, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Any introductory words from you, Randy?
Yeah. Thank you for having us. Thank you for always the kind words. Yeah, definitely, we are definitely on the younger side. And yeah, I know one of the things that like Shelby and I kind of talked about when we were on tour is, the older guys that essentially taught us, they're kind of hitting that age where they're needing to pass the baton over. And it's quite a weight for us to take on, for sure, but it's something that we don't take lightly, and it's something that we go at it very aggressively, head in. The three of us understand the amount of weight that we're carrying, and that we know that the older guys want nothing but for us to take it even further than where they took it to.
Yes.
And that's why they taught us everything they knew. And so everything that we put together as a staff, and I'm sure the other two can attest to this, is a culmination of what we've learned, and we kind of plug it in together, the best of what we've gotten from our teachers, and to make it an even better package. And soon will be the old guys one day passing the baton forward, and that generation will just be even better and better. So I know one of the things that we'll be talking about, well, a lot of what we're going to be talking today about, is routines and breakdowns, how to get your front ensemble to go from, I don't know, just a non-confident front ensemble, or maybe misguided, or non-guided, I guess not misguided, but just non-guided, just kind of lack of direction, and giving them like a direction to go in, and giving them an idea of like, okay, like this is what you need. Because I think no matter which core or which high school you're at, we all strive for the same thing. It is music, cleanliness of music. We all kind of go about it a little bit differently. Some of us will articulate more than others. Some of us will do. It's just we'll go about it a little bit differently. But one thing that we all do agree on is like, okay, the music doesn't need to sound fantastic.
Yes.
And so that's where I feel like this presentation that the three of us put together, covering how we went about it this season, is going to be really helpful to our audience, and helpful to anybody who's wanting to audition for the Cavaliers front ensemble, or actually just the drum bugle corps, because quite honestly, we're not the only ones in the corps that just have a system. Everybody in the corps, from the drum line to the color guard to the brass section, there is a system for everything, even down to how we even have people. There's a system for the water and the system for the Gatorade that we have.
Yes.
Yeah, everything.
Joseph's going, don't forget junior school front ensembles, for sure.
That's right. There is, and there's that. There's people like, yeah. Well, that's because there's great teachers like that out there, just cranking at the younger levels.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like there's a system for everything that in that core that we use, and this is just one of the systems that we use for the front ensemble, and so we all definitely go about it in a very similar fashion. Before I go into the slideshow, I don't know if Ricky,
Yes.
Yeah, I'm reading your name, Rick. Rick or Shelby.
Yeah. Shelby, any introductory words from you? Any? Go ahead. I don't want to prompt you. I want you to speak from the heart.
Just thanks for having us today. It's always a joy, and we're happy to help out and hang out with you for a little bit.
Fun.
This year did present its own unique challenges, like having a shorter timeline, and it definitely raised the question at first, like, how do we adjust the music to fit within a 1 month versus a 3, or do we just treat it the same? Do we need to maybe sacrifice a level of clarity, which is not something that anybody really wanted to do? So I really enjoyed this season because of that, because it was new, and it was refreshing, I think, for everybody to do a season where you just strive for excellence and you don't worry about scores and you don't worry about, oh, we got to be on to this show and this show and this show. And I think the boys really stepped it up and really showed it showed me like what drum corps is all about. It's just like working towards a goal, having fun with your friends, and learning how to play music at an excellent level.
Yes. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you. Great to have you here. Rick.
Sure. What's up? Well, I'll keep it short because I want to get to like the good stuff. That's why everybody's here. But everybody that knows me personally knows what this organization means to me, and they even more fundamentally know what this front ensemble means to me. This front ensemble is my blood, sweat, and tears, and I'm so proud of what the boys did this summer, and I'm so proud of the intellect of Randy and the intellect of Shelby and just what they were able to bring forward. And just this whole season was not one person. It wasn't even just the three of us. It goes deep into the gentlemen that we had the privilege to wake up and teach every day. It went into Mike McIntosh for giving us this space to play with the chess pieces to get the right guys. It went to Cliff Walker, who wrote us a fantastically wonderful, brilliant, stunning book.
Yeah.
It was a village this year. And it went to admin to provide a great experience to us, and management for providing a great experience for us. So it was a village, man. And we're just happy to be here, and we're glad that you enjoyed it. And we hope that we created something that the world can enjoy. The pinnacle of art, So.
Absolutely. You guys did amazing. I do want to ask one thing. I guess, Randy, name drop the people that in the staff, in your admin, in your the percussion people and brass people that were involved, because props needs to be given. And I think if we take a minute or two to recognize them is, definitely in order.
Well, props to V stepped it up this year. V was on management. She came in so clutch. That is name number one that Rick is saying. Yes.
I'm with that too. Yeah, V was so good. I didn't realize how much I needed V in my life. Because basically, like, it's kind of like the pick text job when you get off to the show site. The first thing you do is you take off your phone, you go and find your lot zone, and then you start timing how long it takes to get to the gate. As soon as we pull up, when our admin team, in this case V, had already texted me, it takes this much time to get from the lot zone. She gave me all the stats. You're going to push in side 1. You're going to leave out side 2. Just watch out for this. Don't go down this road. I mean, like,
oh, wow.
I felt like it was one of those weird things where, like, the job I was hired to do was all I was expected to do was just to teach. Even though we all know as teachers, we're hired to teach, but really we're hired to do quite a lot of things.
Yes.
Like whether it being logistics or fixing things or whatnot, like that go broken. No, like the admin team at the Cavaliers make it happen to where we just teach. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, no, I'm just praise in the air.
Yes.
Michael Vaughn for being a wonderful tour manager. Monty Mass for being an impeccably incredible CEO to the organization. Of course, we said Mike McIntosh and Cliff Walker, fantastic people on our side. I mean,
the sound team. Talk about the sound team.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, name more people, guys. I mean, they're long. They're fantastic people. Yes.
Shelby, who sticks out in your mind, ma'am?
Well, him talking about being hired only to truly do the job that we're hired for. In the past, every once in a while, like especially in my earlier years of teaching drum corps, there wasn't always a cohesive, like, this is the sound technician, this is the intern. But man, we were blessed with several interns, and we had Nick Mason holding it down and Ruben Rodriguez helping with a lot of our sound stuff. And I never had to worry a single day about, oh my gosh, are the electronics going to work? Or what if the computer, I didn't have to touch the board. And that is such like a blessing, truly, because then my job only has to be, are the boys playing clean? Is that taken care of? That was amazing.
Yes. Guys, viewers and guests, I got to let you know, FYI, I've been having trouble with my tech today, and right now it just glitched on me. I don't think you noticed it, but I did. So just an FYI, guys, if by any chance the stream gets cut, just stay attentive to the page that you're watching from, and I will give you either in comments, I will give you some direction and some instruction or whatever it may be. So just stay tuned, and I apologize beforehand if it does happen, but it's been happening today for some reason. Anyways, so yes, amazing. Well, guys, I'm gonna say one more thing. Viewers, we have a special treat, a very special treat. I'm not gonna say what it is, but the staff will let you know, and you'll see it. So I am gonna exit stage left, and guys, they're here to see you. You guys are the real MVPs today. Yes.
All righty. Okay, so I'll go ahead and just share my screen. And Gilbert, I know one thing as I was doing this is I was questioning if my audio being shared. I did click on my audio to share last time, but I didn't feel like it really shared. So if you can just kind of keep an eye out for me on that. But all right, cool. Let's see. There we go. Let me just go over to that tab. All right, guys. So audience folks, we put together a slideshow that just kind of covers just a rather quick synopsis, because it's a lot that goes into putting the Cavaliers front ensemble together. But we put together just a quick overview of the main points that we felt guided us to having a successful front ensemble and carrying on the tradition of a long, successful line of front ensembles. So we're just going to jump straight on in. So we're going to be learning today and talking about our training routines and breakdowns that we do throughout the season. I feel like Rick would be great to talk about these first four topics, just because he was the guy who took the front ensemble first and got them settled in on their music and their fundamentals. You want to go on? Go for it, Rick.
Sure, absolutely. So, when we say outset fundamentals, day one of pre-tour was not day one of musicking with the guys. And that was a very, very important truth that we had to acknowledge when approaching this season. Day one was actually probably month 2 of actually musicking with the guys, be it the lot tunes that we could get to them or the movements that we were feeding them as in real time that we were getting them. So I think a huge part of our success was acknowledging that day one was not day one of music, and it couldn't be. I was on tour for the first part for 18 days, and my goal was to get the front ensemble in a place where Shelby and Randy were not walking into a situation where they were questioning what it was that they were doing. I knew that the boys had to get into a place where the next technician wasn't having to go through any sort of remediation. They were already a product. Now, Shelby and Randy can mess with the product and tweak the product however they professionally feel is appropriate. But as far as creating a product, that was paramount in the first 18 days, which is what I did July 1st through 18th. So technique, I think a lot of that was done preseason, but forethought was, we are a home-based drum corps. We are a rebound-based drum corps. A lot of the work we did was in preseason with developing consistent technique as far as what the philosophies were. Of course, when the boys were coming in, we were telling them, hey, you actually need to rebound this or rebound this mallet. And the individual inconsistencies that came via the different settings we were in, such as whatever exercise we were working on and what, tendencies you were bringing to show concepts. But really, we are, not to sound like a broken record, we are rebound based. We are a home base, meaning all 4 mallets are in complete alignment when we perform front ensemble. And just making sure that we were reiterating concepts that we had talked about in April, concepts that we had auditioned them on in February and March. From a tone production standpoint, it is the staple of the Cavaliers that we are also an acoustic-based front ensemble. The tone that we generate, we want to be primarily acoustic-based with enhancement from sound production and sound amplification. And so what that meant from the guys as far as tone, they were a year out from playing it, 2 seasons out with regards to when they were actually doing drum corps. We played to the bar, and I think a lot of the guys, it was jarring to get them for them to actually remember what it was to actually play like the Cavaliers, to play with that sense of aggression. And so a lot of our time was spent about talking about tone and really keying into the acoustic rawness that we get at the Cavaliers. From a posture and pulsing perspective, those two kind of pan hand in hand together. From a pulsing perspective, again, Shelby and Randy each brought a particular nuance to the table. And I think that the visual aspect of what the front ensemble does is a long process. It's a process that massages itself. How they look day 1 is not the same of how they look day 7, is not the same how they look day 14, is not the same how they look from technician to technician, because we envision them looking a certain unique way. And finals night is the beautiful artistic culmination of all 3 of our visions and the boys' vision, because we get them to record themselves and we encourage them to look how they want to look. But from a pulsing posture perspective, how I was day 1, getting the palate straight, we articulate pulsing via the chin. I equate the chin to how a conductor uses their ictus. So, in conducting, when you take conducting and you're in conducting class, you're taught that the ictus of conducting is that point at which the conductor communicates tempo. And from a front ensemble perspective, it is in my belief that that is with the chin. You can't really articulate tempo with the knees per se, because that's not always the most visual, because we don't want you looking at the knees per se always. Knees are a part of pulsing. Knees are a part of the visual aspect, sure, but chin is where I indicate is the starting point. So from a pulsing perspective, I'm making sure that we dictate, are we pulsing in half notes? Are we pulsing in quarter notes? Are we pulsing in dotted half notes? Depending on where we are. And that's where we begin the process of communicating pulse, is with the chin. And that's from day 1 where we start building those visual relationships from member to member. And all that. And another thing that we talk about from a music perspective, one thing that we did was, I'm a believer of the skeletal. And that is, you take the movement, you take all the gobbledygook out of it. We'll talk about that more as we dig into this. But skeletals are a big part of the fundamentals. Getting through an entire movement, albeit in bits and pieces of the entire movement, but getting them to experience at tempo the entire movement is super important. And of course, technique building, chops building, we're chopping them out. We're making sure that at the end of every block, we're beating their hands in. We're making sure that we're doing all of that stuff. So day 1, as far as what day 1 looks like at the Cavaliers organization, that's what it looks like. And also getting ready for the first Valley Day of Percussion as well. That was something that we were doing day one too. So it's neat how that all kind of comes full circle. So that's what day one is like.
Awesome. Thanks, Rick. All right.
Sure.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and cover the next portion on music fundamental training. We talk about timing ear training, which basically all of this is going to go back down to just the first word being timing. Ear training, recognizing slow and fast. It's important for us as the teachers and the techs that our performers know whether they are ahead or behind, early or late. If we're constantly giving them the answer, a lot of times what I've seen in the past is a member will end up just growing to only wait for the technician to give them feedback versus them actively listening and actively trying to find, where they can improve on their music. So a lot of times I'll ask them, okay, did you feel that? Yes. Where? Bar 2. Okay. What beat? Beat 2. Okay. Was it early? Was it early, late, slow, fast? I want them to give me the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why on every little thing, because a lot of the rhythmic clarity and that comes from these front ensembles. It's because they understand their tendencies. Everybody's going to have their own set of tendencies, but if the ear training is not there to help facilitate those things, oh Lord, you'll be chasing a needle in the haystack. So that kind of goes to ear training. Listen responsibilities. Those are some of the things that kind of just we have a standard listening responsibility where everybody listens and also watches, and watching responsibilities right below it. Back to the center. In context of the full band or the full core, that may sometimes change. There may be some portions where the marimbas lay out and it's just metals, and you got vibes on both sides of the pit, and then you have a bell player right in the center. Well, then in that case, then our bell player becomes the focal point, and the vibes start to look in towards their center bell player, and they go off of just that. And it also helps too that he also has the higher range instrument that is a lot more articulate, and so that's sometimes it'll phase over to that. And this is just horizontally speaking. And there may be some opportunities where all the keyboards are no longer playing, and it's just the auxiliaries going from like timpani to synth to the rack to the drum set. So it's like, all right, well, cool. Who's our main focal point? And we kind of have a picture of our drum set player right there. He ends up holding a lot of time just from the nature of his parts that are written by Cliff. He'll end up playing just like a stock a standard rock beat. And so that's always a lot easier for the other members to hold on to whenever he's just doing something of that nature, in the event that the center marimba is not playing or keeping time. So then that's horizontally speaking. We're talking vertically, that can always get it's going to kind of alternate again. It's like, okay, cool. We have drum set player lining up with battery, and they have like almost the exact same part, or they're kind of trading back and forth. Then a lot of that times it's like, okay, cool. Well, drum set's going to be covering those big beats, making sure that we're hitting beats 1, 2, 3, 4, and then our center marimba is going to make sure that we all have the same interpretation of 1 eanda, 2 eanda, 3 eanda, 4 eanda. So the difference is one player covers a larger spectrum of time, and the other player covers a smaller spectrum of time. The interpretation of rhythm, that is, and breathing being the last kind of topic or bullet point on this slide. It's really important that I felt like we were having to remind the guys of breathing even to the last day. Just naturally, with the amounts of things on their own personal checklist, they start building tension up on their own, and it's kind of like our job to just remind them, hey, don't forget to breathe, or don't forget to breathe before coming in on beat 1. Breathing can help out in so many ways, as we're all probably familiar with, just not only just from a technical standpoint or from a visual aesthetic standpoint, that they're not looking super tense and locked up, but also from a timing standpoint. I can't tell you, I can, oh man, I can probably bet one of my month's salary on I'm willing to bet one of these guys is going to come in early to the downbeat to one. So breathing helps a lot with that. With them taking a breath on beat 4, it forces them to put that delay in 1, 2, 3, and doing things of that nature. So that last one right there is really, really important. And I mean, it also kind of coincides with what the brass is doing as well, because they generally take a breath right before their downbeat of 1 as well. So it becomes one unified approach from the entire band/core ensemble. All right, I'll let Shelby take over on this one here. Oh, there's Oscar to our left.
Hey.
Hey.
Awesome. So teaching the music. So once you've gone through most of your technique things and your like spring training, all days kind of things, or maybe simultaneously, and you get into the music, there are some steps that you can take to make sure that you're not cleaning mistakes in July that you should have just fixed when you were learning the music in May or before, right? So same as like with anything that you're playing, before you start, have the students identify the key signature, be comfortable with the key signature. Even I would say have them be comfortable with the notes that aren't in the key signature, just so they can kind of get familiar with like what characteristics those accidentals add, those non-chord tones add if they are added to the music. Secondly, identify scale patterns and modes. So I am a big believer that like even my high school students, I want everybody to know their major scales and I want everybody to know their minor scales, so that in the future, if they go onto a drum corps that wants all the scales, or if they go to a university program, like that stuff is very important. It helps them understand the big picture. As you move on in the season though, I do feel like we get away from that a little bit and we focus more just on the scale patterns or modes that are important in our show music. That's not entirely exclusive. Like I'm not saying if your piece is in D flat, you should only play green in D flat. But think about like the geography of the hands and where they go and what challenges it's given you. And just make sure that you're choosing exercises that are helping your show music and you're not just playing exercises for the sake of playing exercises, right? Yeah. So next, defining challenging rhythms. So I'm thinking small scale, like micro here, like when you're going through the check patterns and people are having trouble playing E-andas, or people are having trouble playing one E. A lot of times there will be a phrase where, oh man, there's all this dirt and we got to clean this phrase. But really all that it is they can't handle that upbeat rhythm. And the more we get comfortable with those offbeats, then the more comfortable the entire phrase is going to get. So I usually look for, because you're crunched for time, I look for phrases that maybe like the vibraphone section and the marimba section is maybe having trouble with the same rhythm, even if it's not exactly the same part in the music. And then just finding a way to plug that into our warm-up routine. So maybe we don't need to play 16th notes back to back and work on chops all morning. Maybe we need more of just playing the offbeats or the upbeats every single time. So really figuring out, like, every single season is going to be different. The exercise formula cannot really stay the same because your music is different and your players are different. This is a big one. And this is what I feel like, this is the one that gets skipped in the beginning of the year, and then you fix it the whole rest of the season, and it's phrasing. And it's a hard thing to do, right? So many times when we start the season, we are worried about chops and we're worried about playing loud and fast. But then when you get into the nitty gritty of it, you have to play quiet as a percussionist, and that's hard. So finding, number one, like, if you're looking at a phrase in music, we might see an example of this on the next slide. But if you're looking at a phrase that has a whole bunch of crescendo, decrescendo, crescendo, decrescendo, you also have to ask yourself, is it worth it? Like, even if the students are playing this phrasing 100%, is it going to communicate in the big mix of horns and battery and everything going on? Or is that something that needs to be a more macro phrase and really like build energy from the beginning rather than having a whole bunch of nuanced crescendo decrescendos? But I would say out of like these first 4 that I've talked about, the phrasing is the one that I would spend a lot of time on, talking about touch and talking about velocity in which you hit the keyboard versus also like stick heights. Like sometimes our volume should come from stick heights. Sometimes if it's appropriate, it comes from touch. So just making sure that your students are comfortable with that differentiation so that they can make the musical choice when the time comes. Allowing time for members to read on their own. Man, I struggle with this one too, especially like early in the season, even with my high school kids. It's easy to be like, oh no, we have to rehearse. We only have 2 hours and we have to have this together and blah, blah, blah. But if you've got that kid that's struggling because they're obviously not comfortable with the music, or if you have a couple kids struggling, sometimes you really have to just make the choice of, okay, is it going to be more beneficial for them if I let them have an hour on their own to get their life together? And then usually when you come back, it's immensely better than it would have been if you were just like beating them into the ground, so to speak, for an hour of like, okay, well, rep this. So especially early in your season, like your band camp season, or maybe like when they first get the music, even if we're talking just percussion ensemble, I would encourage you to give the students time for individual practice time into your busy schedule. Because especially with younger students, it's harder to say like, okay, go home and practice this and we'll come back and rehearse it. I mean, sometimes that happens. Sometimes they need a little bit of supervised observation, less so at the drum corps level, but with younger students, yeah. And with that, let's skip. So with that, divide and conquer. Sometimes as a pit tech, it's also challenging because you have like, man, I'm looking at the timpani player and the synth player and the marimba players and everybody's playing different parts and it's a lot for me to keep up with. But use your leadership, man. If you've got a vibraphone player that's a killer leader, it doesn't even have to be the best player in the group, although that helps. Or if you've got a marimba player that's really good at like pacing rehearsal, let them take it and just trust them to make it happen. And you can float between groups and kind of see what's going on. But that's so valuable. And same thing, even with like the rhythm section. A lot of times I feel like our rhythm section got way better just from like drum set player, rack, and keyboards playing the stuff that they really need to work on. Since typically like in a rehearsal, they get neglected a little bit because we end up like cleaning the keyboards. That kind of happens everywhere, I think. So use your leadership, divide and let them guide. And they, at a certain point, they know what they need. So they can really focus on that and work on that. And then lastly, pacing. Pacing to be slow enough to not be creating mistakes that you're going to see in the future. Like obviously do not start at show tempo when you're learning music. I would say start at like even slower than you think you need to, like baby steps slow, just to make sure in the memorization process that everybody's memorizing correct dynamics and notes and rhythms, like not letting things slip that you're going to have to clean up later. Yeah, and one phrase at a time, sometimes even like one bar at a time, one beat at a time, depending on how nerdy you want to get and how much time you have. And if you show the leaders how the pacing is supposed to go and they understand breakdowns and like how that works, then when you do divide and conquer, they understand how to run a rehearsal and they know how to practice. So teach your students how to practice, and then they'll do some of the work for you on their own.
Yeah. Awesome. All righty. Yeah. Oh, we get to the fun part.
The special treat.
Yeah. So we thought it'd be great to go ahead and just kind of reveal some of the notation that was being used this past season, and really kind of highlighting the challenging parts that came into the season, and how the three of us basically broke this down. And this section right here that we're looking at was in our opener, and it was it was it was a time for sure to pull this one to not only together but also just get every little bit of blemish out. So just a heads up. So our opener was at tempo equals 192, and if you guys can just see right up front on this second bar, the 4/4, they're playing block chords, all up accents, and it comes in on the and of 1. So there's a lot of things here that we can the three of us can kind of chat about on how we broke this down, and then we'll also have a little treat for you once the three of us kind of just chat about the phrase that we're looking at and how we went about this. So Rick, do you want to go first? We can kind of just go in like the order which we were in.
Sure. And what I think it's really neat, I was talking to Randy, is just we as a staff really haven't had the opportunity to kind of debrief about the season yet. And so in many ways, like going through it from this perspective is cathartic. Just to like, how did you see this? How did you see this? So
yeah.
We haven't had the opportunity to do that. So I'm very curious for this part of our presentation for you today. Well, first things first, one thing that you can't see above that are the battery notes. And the battery notes, it is straight eighth notes. So thank you, Mike McIntosh, for providing us a good sonic presence to start putting this together. I believe Randy, was this the first percussion ensemble or the second percussion ensemble?
This was the second moment.
Right. So from a front to back standpoint, it was already better than the first one. The first one had the percussion ensemble over on side 2 off to the side, and that created some very interesting listening environments. But just before getting to it, it was straight eighth notes from the battery. They were around the back hash backfield. So from a listening environment, we were set up for success for this particular section pretty well. But looking into it, yes, Randy was very much so correct. We start on the upbeat, but again, thank God we had the sonic presence of straight eighth notes through this. But still, there was a lot to kind of decipher. I created what is called the skeletal system for our movements. And so what basically I did was I took out the gobbledygook of this measure. What is it that the guys need to feel? They need to feel the eighth notes. They need to feel the constant eighth note as we travel from eighth notes to 16th notes and synthesizing the intervallic shifts that it takes from around the perfect fourth interval that we see these block chords achieving the inside licks into the compressed second intervals. And just my thought process again for the first 18 days was getting them to feel this section and that halftime pulse, again taking the e's and uhs out of that and just making sure that at the very least the eighth note, quarter note, half note presence was felt through this. If I felt like this lick was in a decent shape, which towards the end I got to just a little bit with this one, begin the cleaning process I got to, but again, my perspective was this, taking the e's and uhs out of that 16th note, isolating those intervallic shifts, which they were late, shocker. It was 192. Just making sure that we're giving them that information to get through the phrase to where when Shelby came on right after me, she could, with a new, brighter set of ears, dictate what the more microscopic inconsistencies were from player to player. So with that, Shelby, your turn.
Sure. And yeah, I mean, when I showed up, I feel like this phrase was not even really in terrible shape. Really maintaining like those blocks and keeping them powerful and like the heights that they needed to be. I think sometimes players are at different levels, like chops wise. So that was something that we worked on, making sure if we're at 12 inches, everybody's playing 12 inches. But then also a lot of times I like to combine, like if you look at the 16th note measure, like combining that kind of stuff into a chord instead of thinking it as 4 different notes, just so you are getting the intervals that they're actually supposed to be holding. And then the last step with this that I think just gets forgotten sometimes also is like there's some tenutos in here and some accents in here that as you go on start to kind of disappear, just because you've been playing it sometimes for like 3 months, so it starts to kind of go away. So just making sure that your taps are always more important than your accents. Your taps are always perfect in time. They're always consistent. They're contributing if you got a decrescendo or a crescendo. That's something I really tried to focus on. Because the accents are always there. It's the taps that are kind of mischievous. That's all I got, man.
Okay, I was like, am I being tapped in? All right. Okay, so
Randy, it's hard because I'm going to be completely transparent. This was next on the list for me. Like just being completely transparent. I got us up to that point. We had done a lot of good work on 2. 3 was the end of 3 was in a good place. We had to get part 4 put together in the 3 days that we did before Shelby came on. This was not, again, my experience with this was pretty topical. I think you and Shelby probably had the grit with this lick. So.
Yeah, well, and honestly, so like in my involvement, audience that are watching, is like I was the last guy to get tapped in. So anything that was slightly gray needed to immediately get to a clear standpoint. There was
slightly gray.
Yeah.
Or not slightly gray.
Yeah. And this was just one of those sections that, like, as those of us who have cleaned ensembles or who have been in, I've basically everybody I'm sure in our audience who's been in ensemble, you're in the midst of cleaning, you start noticing that the cleaner you get, almost like the dirtier you're sounding, because now that things are starting to clean up, now like your bads start really sounding bad. And so by the time I had come into this the season, it was at that point to where and like I mentioned to the players, once you show me you can cook, you better cook for me every single day. And so if you play an 8th note bass rhythm, 16th note bass rhythm somewhere else in the show that at 192 and you're playing it tight, I have no idea what your issue is right here. It's just one like we need to pull it together now. Like learn how to transfer all of these fundamentals throughout the ensemble. Now, this particular phrase, and as I'll tap in, was just a little bit different because there was a little bit of a chops issue that we're running into, and it was basically I don't know. Can y'all see my cursor?
Yes, we can. You got to get in close, but yeah, you can.
Darn it. Okay. Well, basically, it's that second 4/4 bar here. So by the time we start getting to like beats 3 and 4, the guys kind of started showing like, oh, I'm starting to chop out. And I was asking them, I was like, do you guys feel like you're chopping out? And they're like, no. And I was like, man, like, and I was like, it looks like your hands are out of gas by the time you get to this phrase. And it's just, one, it's not a good look for you, and 2, it's definitely not a good sound for our production side. So what we ended up finding was there was just a lack of wrist rotation taking place right here. So it's just like, okay, cool, like, yeah, we're playing big in that first 4/4 bar, but this was one of those bars. It's like, did you forget to revert back to your fundamentals? And evidently we were. And so a lot of our issues that we end up when we're breaking the music down always come back to rhythmically, do you know how to come in on do you know how to play 8th notes perfectly, and do you know how to play quarter notes perfectly, is basically what it all boils down to. And then if it's like a chops thing, it's either a lot of times it'll come back down to that technique. Like, are you overdoing something? Are you pulling your first finger in and then pushing your thumb in a little bit further to where now that thumb muscle of yours is flexing so hard that you're just like, man, Randy, my hands are so sore. And I ask them, okay, tug on each finger and find out which one is the one that's most sore. And they'll say, oh, well, it's my thumb, or oh, it's my ring finger. So at that point, like, we start to evaluate, like, what are we doing technically that is causing an issue sonically, because everything finds its way through. The first thing that I noticed in this as we were cleaning this was, whenever we have cymbals coming into a very rhythmic section, and in this particular case, we were supposed to line up with the battery eighth notes, but just heads up, anybody who's planning on cleaning anything that you're about to lock something in behind you, if you have a cymbal roll, just know that to the performer, that cymbal roll is going to blind them of all time. It's going to blind them completely. And so that's going to be one of those situations where they need to really, really keep their pulse tight and communicate to one another that, okay, we're still maintaining tempo. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So and that was a big problem that we kind of ran into. And so we could definitely try also metering this cymbal roll as well. But in the end of the day, like their concept of time would just disappear on these cymbal rolls. So what we were doing is we're focusing a lot in our routines, where we would just, when we wake up and I'd say, all right, guys, we're going to play some attacks today, but we're going to play an attack together off of a cymbal roll. So we're going to attack every 16 counts, and you're going to do a cymbal roll on the last, 14, 15, 16. There you go. Or 13, 14, 15, 16. No, 14, 15, 16. I got it right. Sorry. So then we'll just play 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, roll, and come back down. And we repeat the same thing, because that was definitely not just one of those things where we were just seeing it here in this phrase, but we also saw it quite many times throughout the show, where we had a cymbal roll leading into a very, very obvious rhythmic section that we had to lock in. So that was one of the ways we broke it down. I'm going to kind of go into this next slide because it is part of the same phrase. And we kind of got into this 60th note section. If you kind of see, it's the second bar. Beats 1 and 2 have permutations 4, 1, 2, 3. Which is just a lateral permutation, but a bit of like an inverted roll thing, because it starts on mallet 4. So they're going 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And then when they get to beat 3, that's where the haymaker was at, because it automatically changed the motion, but yet the 16th note value was going to stay the same. So a lot of times what I would tell the guys is you honestly just need to get comfortable playing this, away from the notes. Like, no matter what the permutation is, no matter where the notes are located on the board, you need to save that 60th note value. And so, and I'm going to I'll say this as quick as I can, because I don't want to sound too big of a nerd. But when I clean front ensembles and we're talking about concepts of rhythms and time, I explain to them that silence is our canvas. Like, silence is number one. That is where we start before we start throwing in tempos, or throwing in rhythms and pitches. And so how we divide that silence is what's important. So instead of focusing so much and turning up the metronome, putting all the 60th notes on, and they're playing with that, it's almost like, to a performer, they're throwing darts at each partial. As opposed to, okay, number one is you start together. We have to put all of our energy on the downbeat of 1. Okay, cool. Number 2, we need to all make sure we have the same interpretation of a 60th note. So that's your second note. And then at that point, you've now established 2 notes. You should be able to hear the space and see the space that you've created. And so as we were going about these 60th notes, I reminded them, you've already said, based off of mallets 4 and 1 E, that's it. That's all you need. You place those 2 babies in time. I don't care what you play after that, where on the board you're playing, what the permutation is. You need to savor that space and copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. It's all about that hand speed once you establish the downbeat and the interpretation of that rhythm. So what we're going to do is we're going to have, and this is our surprise special treat for you guys, is we're going to have one of our marimba players from the 2021 Cavaliers front ensemble play the breakdown sequence for you guys. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing here and find my way back to you all's screen. Give me a second. There it is. Very cool. So here we have Oscar Torres. Oscar, say hi.
Hello.
Yeah, there you go. He speaks. So Oscar, along with Speaks, he also plays marimba quite well. He played outside marimba for us, and he comes to us from California. We're definitely really excited to have him. And so what Oscar is going to do is he's going to play that phrase for you guys, and then he's going to go ahead and play the breakdowns of it. So Oscar, can you, setting the tempo at 192, can you go ahead and just play the phrase as is, just so we can hear it as is? Very cool. So yeah, as y'all can see, there's enough little tricky spots in there that can kind of give us a little bit of that gray. And Oscar did a fantastic job at playing that as is. So one of the things that Rick did that I don't know if I could ever thank Rick enough. Honestly, I need to send him a thank you card every single day for doing this. Is he made the entire front ensemble learn the entire show on a check pattern, which takes a lot of patience from the tech. Like, it takes patience from the pit. Trust me, it takes a lot of patience from the tech to not just ditch that boat. So, Oscar, can you go ahead and yeah.
You
so Oscar,
will do this.
go ahead and play the check pattern for that, please. So this is our variation 1 of cleaning this. Very good. Sweet. So essentially what it does is it just eliminates all 16th notes and just keeps everything steady 8th note pulse throughout. And where we have permutations 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, what Oscar was doing, he was doing 14, 23, going outside, insides. And so that's one way that we clean the front ensemble, just to get their motions going through, and just so we can keep the pulse going. There you go, Oscar. There's my famous gesture that all of them would laugh about. But just so we could keep the pulse going. And so so that was definitely really helpful. And then at that point, we had to create a step system into getting us to where we're playing the part as is. So Oscar, can you go ahead and play to us the check A version now? Thank you. So in this check A version, what we did was, again, kind of going back to my philosophy on cleaning rhythms, the first thing is, okay, the first note has to be there. As soon as you dismiss your first note, it's we just really need to redo that again, because everything after that is just kind of like a crazy place for us to clean. So once the first note is there, then we start focusing on the second note, the second partial of the 16th. And so in our check A version, we add the first 16th to each one of the phrasings. So so he'll play 1 E and throughout, and then he'll play 1 E and 2 and 3 and 4 and, if that makes sense. And then same thing with the last permutation, where he plays 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 4 E and 1. Okay, sweet. So now, Oscar, can you go ahead and play the check B version of this? Very cool. Yeah, dude, he's a hell of a player. So now, at this point now that we've established, okay, we're playing 1 EN correctly. We've already now said this is our 60th note value. We can now fill in the rest of the 60th notes. The last portion where he's playing 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, that is now just isolating the second half of the 16th rhythm. And so that was one thing that we also had to clean. So we're cleaning both sides of the beat, but also cleaning both sides of the motion. And with this level of player, we're talking a lot about motions. We're talking a lot about feel. Does that feel right? Does that feel ahead? Does that feel behind? Does that feel slow? Because they don't. I have not, and maybe Rick did, but when they got to me, they were not falling off the metronome. It was just more of leaning on a certain spot of the met to where they were just hitting right in the center of the pocket all the time, where it just felt so good. I don't know, Rick. I don't remember. I didn't see them fall off met. Did you ever have them fall off met?
I don't remember, dude. And we can talk. We'll talk about this more with movement too, and the process of a skeletal. Like we did so much skeletal bare fundamentals work that we Jedi'd them past that, if that makes sense. You know, there wasn't too much of that. I mean, like with Cloud Force and something that was more 9/16, 11/16, 13/16, we had some oopsie daisies with that. But you know, when we were working with traditional metronomic, you know, something time signature over 4, something time signature over 8. In that setting, they were pretty solid on that. So.
Because people knew their listening responsibilities. Because if they're off the met, it's one person's fault that is off the met because everybody's playing with that person. Hopefully.
Yeah, most definitely. So essentially, and I guess I just wanted to be transparent because we are dealing with I guess a lot more advanced player. I don't want to say talented because to me all kids are talented, but this level of player is a lot more experienced. And so at this point, like, you know, again, we're not necessarily talking so much on like, oh, you were just way off. It's more of just the slight wave of time that just separates us as the audience from, man, I'm vibing with this. I am sitting right in the pocket with this player versus, man, I feel anxious when I'm hearing this group, or man, I just feel really lethargic when I'm hearing this group. And those are kind of just the feelings that I get when I just feel time waver. Oscar, did we play all the checks just then, or did I leave out check C?
No, that was all the checks, unless you want me to play it as written again.
Yeah, go ahead and let's pull it all back together, and let's go ahead and just play as is one last time for the folks at home. So big round of applause for Oscar.
Yeah.
He is
flex, man, flex.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And Oscar, do you feel like at the beginning of the season you were able to play that right on the money every single time like you are right now?
I can answer that. No, dude. You came to us very well prepared. Thanks for that, dude.
Yeah, but and honestly, all these breakdowns allow the player, the individual, to really just kind of discover a lot about their own tendencies and to just iron those out to where they're just not going to show up again. So to the point where we can bring in a marimba player and just say, play it in front of God and everybody. and they can lay it down every single time. And a lot of times, even for me as a performer, and Rick and Shelby, I don't know if this was the case for you, I honestly felt like I had to try even harder on the checks versus the part itself, because some of the checks are just, they're hard. And it's like, it's the same music, but when you're isolating one part, like it's like everything just becomes uncovered.
Exponentially scarier.
Yeah, it's the true test of, do you know this or not? Do you know where every single hand goes for every single note? Yeah.
I was
for sure
more stressed out to do checks on a lot than I ever was to play in front of any big name DCI judge Like I just hands down, it's nerve wracking. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. So one thing that that we implemented this year was sequencing, and essentially what this does is, and again, this is because we have uh, a very dedicated, mature player in the ensemble, or throughout the ensemble, excuse me. So what Oscar just demonstrated to you guys was a check, and then a check A, which was just one of the variations of the check, and then a check B variation. And so what I had them do in the lot, actually I say what we had them do in the lot was we would say, okay, set 29 sequence, and the drum set player would then just play a standard rock beat, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, yeah, yeah, exactly, and everything just kind of revolved around, let's now sit in this pocket, let's let it feel good. I don't care how intense the part is, let it feel good. Don't start giving off the idea that, oh my god, this is the hardest part in the world, because again, we want to go after effortless mastery. So from there, the players would then just do each variation 4 times each, all on their own. And as a tech, we didn't click sticks. It was literally just go, and the guys would just run the lot pretty much on their own. And so I know there was a part where I had to step off for my sister's wedding, and Rick had to step on, and I was very dedicated to the point where I was like, all right, cool. When Rick comes on, I want him to literally just show up to the lot with a martini, sunglasses, and these guys could just literally run it on their own. Was that right, Rick?
Yes, and that was very much so communicated to you from me in the car ride to Wisconsin.
yeah. So
walk in, dude. I just gotta, I gotta be hands off, dude.
Yeah, and so, but the good thing about it is that the more responsibilities you can give some of these top level players, I mean, the better they are for it too. They're definitely at that level to be taking that level of responsibility and basically running their own lots. And so I would just yell out, okay, set 6 sequence, and they would know exactly how many reps of each variation they needed to do. And the center marimba would just tap them off in between. And then some of those reps that were just like rather choppy, so like we had one with just inner mallets just flying. I definitely didn't have, well, at first I did. I did have them playing it 4 times each, but that was just for the sake of endurance. But once we kind of started getting a little bit further into the season, I didn't want to burn them out in the parking lot of their show, if that makes sense. So that was one of those things that I just had to take into consideration, where I just thought, okay, let's just do it twice. That's it, twice, so we can just get the variation in there, get our hands together, get our lives together, and we're going to go inside and rock the show. So there's that. Let's see. Thank you, Oscar. We'll probably use you. Actually, we will use you for one more slide here. Let me just pull this back up.
Oscar didn't know he was doing this till a few hours ago, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I can do it."
Yes.
He's awesome.
He is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Oscar, I give you a hard time, man, but you did good.
You're allowed to come back next year, Oscar.
Thank you. You are invited back.
Yeah, you're invited to the first camp. Okay. Oh, I put this one on. That's funny, Oscar. I hope you're ready to chop it. Okay, so this was actually the phrase I was referring to, that it's got some beef in there, and lucky for all of us is that it's also 8th note based. So it's definitely in the world of like just as long as you establish a downbeat and you've created the 8th note, that you've created an 8th note 1 and going into beat 2 of the first step measure on the left, you should be safe there. 1 and 2 and a 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and a 1. And at that point, like any motions that are taking place, you just need to make sure that again you don't start rushing to accidentals like we have here on measure 3, where we have E flat D going down to C. and it's essentially just goes back up. And so just not, again, overcompensating some of that that space that you're having to travel up to that top manual. And so what I'm going to do is, instead of just kind of explain this, I'm just going to have Oscar just play this for us. Oscar, can you start right there, and taking it all the way to that end of set 50? So I know normally in the lot sequence we would start at set 50, but for just for sakes of the presentation, can you just start on the phrase before that? 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1, 2, 3. Here you go. Let me stop sharing this. Another clap. Yeah. So sorry. Right. So and again, like, there's a lot of like little trouble spots in there that can, and they're like little sneaky little guys. It's like it might want to push the 60-note valley a little bit ahead. But Oscar definitely did a great job at just kind of settling that down. So on the last portion that he played was just like a rather long lick, starting on the end of 1, and even though it is all all of it is in 3/4 time. I definitely, what I did during my part of the season was I divided that lick into 3 chunks, and because just based off of the phrasing of it, because there was a bit of the over the bar line phrasing taking place there on the melodic side. So Oscar, can you go ahead and just play check for us on the long 16th note run there, right there at set 50? And so again, this kind of goes back to Rick's time when he had them all learn just the 8th note or just the right hand only. And so in this case, it allows Oscar or the members to find their path throughout the entire phrase, and then also just time that, making sure that, hey, I am just playing 8th notes, but these 8th notes better be spot on. So again, just kind of simplifying and just isolating one thing at a time. So now, Oscar, can you go ahead and just play check A for us, and I'll explain what you're doing here. This does is, again, we're talking about establishing an 8th note pulse. So what we did was on the last melodic phrase there, and again, this is going over the bar line at this point. We throw in the last of the 60th notes. So it's okay, cool. Now that we have the 8th notes going, let's go and start throwing in the 60th notes at the very tail end of that. And 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3. And so now what we're going to do is, since again we're looking at this in 3 chunks, we had the members play the last of the 16ths. Check B is going to be where the middle side of the 16ths now are going to be isolated, and on both sides are going to have 8th notes. So Oscar, can you go ahead and play check B for us? And again, so now we're just establishing that center part to where they can focus on just playing the left hand within that center part of the phrase. And then the last check, Oscar, can you go ahead and play check C for us? Or is it check B? Check C. It is check C. So, and at this point now, I've trusted them that they can play the 16th notes. At the very end, it's just about really just putting a lot of energy on the first set of those 16ths and establishing that with a good pulse, good tone, good look, all of the above. Everything has to just be stellar. So, Oscar, I know I had you originally start the phrase before that. Can we go ahead and just sum it all up and just give the audience one last performance starting on that one end? Go. As is. Yeah, and that's challenging for sure. And right now, like I feel like he's making 192 sound like 152 because
Yeah,
he's
a lot of space in his 16. Good job.
Yeah. So and that's the goal. Like for us to not give our audience this this feeling of like, man, that's fast and man, it looks so hard. Like if they're doing their job right, we should convince you that you can come up and play it, even though you probably can. But I mean, seriously, that's what we want. We want effortless mastery. We don't want these guys to be flexing from their toe all the way up to their ear. And a lot of that's just going to come from just slow breakdowns and very methodical breakdowns. I don't know, if there's anything else that Rick and Shelby you guys want to touch on before we move on?
I do have one note regarding like long runs like that. Just make sure you're not overdeveloping your right hand and neglecting your left hand. Like a lot of times I want for my students to know the right hand check and the left hand check, and both hands together. And what I mean by that is obviously usually we don't play the left hand on the upbeat, like where it belongs, but you can do some reps just having them play the left hand check only on the downbeats, and then see what it's like. If there aren't a whole bunch of like crisscrosses, see what it's like to play both hands together in like, does that make sense? Like hands together, playing the check as eighth notes. Yeah, I think that's really beneficial. And we even did some of that early season. And it's good. Another thing I'm thinking about is just making sure you don't always need to play the same check for the entirety of the season. Maybe sometimes in the beginning of the year, they do need left hand, right hand, hands together, but then zero in on what's actually causing the problems later in the season, and then just check that. Because a lot of times you will see like a plateau with the students of like, this is helping, this is helping, this is helping. Okay, we're not getting any returns on this. We need to find a new way to work on it. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm glad you bring that up, Shelby, because I just want our audience to know that like Rick, Shelby, and I, we all want the same thing, but because we are coming in at different parts of the season, we're having to come in with just a little bit of a different approach. So we listen to basically where it's at, and then we'll basically keep what the previous tech before us was doing, and it's like, all right, cool. Well, let's go ahead and just start doing a little bit of less of this, because now you guys have done that so well. Some other parts in our show are now sticking out in a very bad way. So we're going to go ahead and now put some love on that area. So yeah, that's really important. Shelby brings up, because three of us may say things a little bit different, but it's just because it's our different roles that we play within the ensemble.
But perspectives, and Oscar, you can attest to this. When I was on, we didn't really focus on this lick much. I was more focused on the previous, like literally, if you back up 3 measures, there is that phrase. And like my thing was the boys, it was 8th note bass, it was 16th note bass, moderately achieving the attack of the upbeat right there. It wasn't a new foreign thing for them to do that. They had done it previous, where they've entered on the upbeat previous. I didn't have the luxury to even really dig into this lick, because I had this previous lick right before. He starts on it at the beginning of this excerpt. He starts at that 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and that I was messing with. So just, again, different perspectives, because I didn't feel like I had the luxury to get to that lick yet, really, as a technician.
You see,
it's on that. So
yeah, I didn't even have to work on that, because clearly you did it for me.
Because there was content even before that, and so that was directly affecting the clarity of that. It's just like we couldn't even talk about this because this.
Yeah. So this, I guess, it's like one thing for like our audience to think about, like as you guys kind of like bring folks in and bring techs in, like just like the different phases that we kind of go into. But all right, let me
To
Go ahead.
piggyback off that, and I know you're in transition, Randy. To piggyback off that, I think what's most important to take from this is that it's organic. You know, there's no copy and paste, you know, algorithm that we use to generate and to self-clean. Everything's situational. Every year music is evolving. Every year music is different. Every year we're asked to do different things. And so I think while it's important to take the overarching concepts into consideration, you know, it's organic. The season grows, and our problems when I'm on tour are not the problems when Shelby's on tour, not the problems when Randy's on tour. So it's just neat to, you know, have this perspective, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. 100%. All right, let me go back into our sharing here. Let's see. All righty. All right, so that was that phrase. All right, and then we'll kind of just one of the last things that we'll have Oscar play for us. Our movement to was quite a monument. Yeah, it was a monumental too, for sure. I feel like it was because basically that entire movement was just a front ensemble feature.
Yes.
And which I felt is like very well deserved. Our front ensemble at Cavaliers, I mean, it's no secret within the core. Like we always kick ass every year. Like every year we strive for that level, and there is definitely a high respect amongst all of us, and obviously we feel like the whole core does that. But there's definitely a lot of love thrown in our direction, which we really appreciate, and which is why we get to have as many notes as we have, because there's a lot of trust given to not only the members and the staff, but trust within the legacy that has been essentially passed down to us from just decades and decades of phenomenal pits that the Cavaliers has put out. So this. Again, I'm gonna go ahead and just have Oscar play this for us, and we'll just kind of take it from there. Let me see. Now we kind of just put that up on the screen. Oscar, can you set your Met to 156, please?
That was awesome! Yes! Excellent job, dude. Yes, that was excellent.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, so one of the things that I feel like Cliff Walker brings to the table as like a writer is he starts opening up the palette for us. And traditionally, our front ensemble is very aggressive and very athletic. And Cliff did a great job in our opener, and well, actually throughout the show, especially in our opener, throwing that Cavalier stamp that we're known for. With this movement, this was one of those situations where I talked to the pit a lot about some of the things that I learned from Abe when I got to the opportunity to study with her, which is like, no matter how soft this is, that is a sound. That's a sound. Just just like that's a sound. And so don't ever be afraid to pull your audience in like that sonically and then reverse and push them back out. And so the biggest challenge within this movement, aside from just that first ripple that comes in, is the phrasing. And I know Shelby talked a lot about earlier, like, don't, leave the phrasing for last. But that's a serious comment, because your phrasing will change. It essentially brings in its own rhythmic issues. So the louder you're playing, the more velocity you're having to throw from the mallet down into the bar. So now your mallet's going faster. And so if the guys aren't already playing with the velocity that you're wanting, and then later into the season you're like, oh, by the way, we were playing with too little velocity, but I'm barely not to say this now. Guess what? Next rep, they're going to start rushing because the mallet's now coming at the bar faster. And then the same thing vice versa. When it's like we haven't been getting down low enough, and so now they're equating, soft to slow. And so figuring out how to keep time and tone, big one, time and tone throughout, from this height all the way to the big heights back down, and being able to make sure that the entire ensemble does it as one cohesive unit to establish that beautiful blend that we have going on. One of the big things in this opener was we had them kind of like the brass sections, they call it bopping, where they just play the first initial attack to their sustain without sustaining. And so I would have the guys just play bop, just their entrances, just to isolate really, like, okay, are we all just coming in together? Are we all coming in on the end of one appropriately? And from there, it just, again, it strips down everything and allows us to really look in to see if you understand the appropriate approach to hitting one or two or end of one. And then at that point, it's like, all right, cool. Now that I trust everybody, go ahead, marimba, you go ahead and play it as is. Everybody else still bop. Now center marimba is going to use everybody as checkpoints. There's always ways for us to kind of finagle the thing to where we're allowing these guys to grow at a rate to where they can use the people aside from on both sides of them as a checkpoint. I don't know if you guys, Rick or Shelby, you guys want to talk about any further developments before I have him play that again?
Sure. I'd like to. So one thing that I think that front ensemble, the direction that writing is going, how is it different than it was previously, is the implementation of lateral. I think laterals have become one of the more aggressive technical facets, and it's new. And not new in the sense of there were laterals back when Shelby and Randy and I were marching, but like not to the aggressive level that they're being implemented today. And why is that? Because they're hard. And in my opinion, they're the hardest thing to clean as a technician. And so, when we talk about how it is we went about doing that, the skeletal that we created for this was as such to make sure that in lateral situations, we're still actively feeling pulse, because it's so easy to compress in a lateral and to feel it as a flourish less than an actual very precisely placed rhythm. Like that first phrase that Oscar is playing is a sextuplet that must precisely occur in these two beats. It can't just be this ambiguous flourish. Why? Because it will never be clean, from player to player. So therein lies, that was the biggest, for me and my stint, that was the biggest hurdle for me, is to create and set them up for success from a rhythmic perspective. I'm fortunate I did get to do a little bit of the macro, big picture phrasing ideas. The feeling the dotted half note, feeling all of that stuff. But I think that you'll find a huge technical facet to this that we focused a lot in the preseason of acknowledging that these laterals, all of these different techniques, they have to be precisely placed. And that's, again, that's a huge, I think a huge skill set to what this movement offered the gentlemen. It was fun to clean. It was fun and new to clean,
Yeah, it really was. And I feel like the guys felt like they had a good or bad show if they didn't nail that first sextuplet going in.
Oh,
Especially,
I know.
yeah, it was because it was just cold attack. Like I want the audience to know there was no tempo coming in.
Nope.
Nobody dudded them in. They literally just had to look at center marimba, and he would just go 1, 3, up, and it was.
There's no congruency from 192 to 156. That is pure Jedi.
You just Jedi. Feel the force. Yeah. And we expect these guys to do that. But I always feel like even in high school, the front ensembles in the ballad are always still expected to do some type of variation of that. And I feel like sometimes we don't give them enough credit, or like we play down the scenario too hard or too much. It's like no, like these kids, they're very smart, and they're expected to do some things that I mean I guarantee you, man. Like take a second and pick up the mallets yourself and go back there and feel what they're feeling. You're gonna be like, oh crap.
We don't have time to go into this excerpt, I know, but the end of part 3, the big retardando, and the cold attack that Patrick has to start on. That's another one of those instances where it's like the force is strong, the Jedi is real. This is where like we take all that we've learned from Rob Pastor and just Jedi this thing down the alleyway.
But your young kids can do that. Just challenge them to do it, and they can do it. Don't let them know that it's hard, and they can do it.
Yes.
Yeah. For real. Oscar, play movement 2 again.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Awesome. Great job, Oscar. Great job, man. Love having you come out and do this. Yeah. So, yeah. So let me go and we're going to kind of finish our presentation for today.
Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you.
You're awesome. You still sound as good as you did a week ago.
Yes.
That was mesmerizing, Oscar. Mesmerizing. Wow. You guys were alluding or making reference to the fact, Shelby, you were saying, our high school kids can do, something similar, if not the same, because and you're right. We don't tell them that it's hard and they don't know any better. Oh, I got to learn it. Wow. Bravo, Oscar.
Thank you, sir. All right. Let me see. I'm trying to share my screen here. Is it sharing on your side, Gilbert? Oh, there it goes.
Now, is the audio going to work is the real question.
Yeah, Gilbert, let me know if the audio works for this really quick.
No.
Is it coming across, Gilbert?
No, it's not. If you can send me the link, and I'll play it from my end.
Okay. Watch on YouTube? Sure. All right. That's just sent to you through Facebook.
Okay.
Where is my tab at? Oh, it's all the way over here. All right. Okay. There it is. Let me just stop sharing here. So one of the things that I wanted us to kind of, and while I was playing that video, was because the amount of choreography that goes behind the keyboard. Don't ever underestimate how much the members need that. They don't get to mark time. They don't get to say dut 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 or click their sticks before coming in on one. So they honestly go off of a lot of their motions, the pulsing, and you'll be able to see within like the first 2 minutes of this, if we're able to pull it through, how the guys will all just move together, and that's by no coincidence. That is definitely something that is just coordinated so that they can keep time, so that they can keep that feel going of that just ebb and flow within their performance. Gilbert, do we have something?
Give me a second. Almost there.
Okay.
Can you guys hear it?
Yes. Am I not here? I'm not hearing it either, right? Or you guys aren't hearing it either?
No, it was working, and then it stopped.
Okay.
You can see that kid with the Pokemon hat, though.
Give me a quick second.
Yeah, that's what's important.
Oh, yeah. Okay, now it should work. Famous last words. Here we go.
Third time's charm.
Yeah.
You're muted, bro.
My bad. All right, so there was one of the situations where their motions are going to save their rear on these very open spots, and that law tune of theirs is so essentially it's based off the Cloud Forest production by Blake Tyson, and our center marimba Steven Zimmerman is his last name, right, guys? Zimmerman. Yeah. He studies with them, and evidently they both pulled the tune together so we could play it this season, which is great. But it's a tough tune. It's not necessarily something that's tough on like the physical side, but on just basically pulling it all together to where we can sound great and to sound appropriate to what the original sounds like.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the hardest lot tune I've ever taught.
It's their version of marking time for the battery, the physical movement.
Yeah, for sure. And that's how we're able to get through a lot of that. And one of the last sections that we're listening to is just very open. And the vibes are the ones having to play. It's just very, very open, very, very open. And again, like they have to be able to still feel that pulse that was already established coming into that phrase, and then also using their eyes to lock it in. And it definitely takes a very mature ensemble. I mean, I was at a high school earlier today that they asked me to come and just kind of give like okay, well, what do you see? And they had their vibraphones spread apart like that. And I know we do that at Cavaliers, but like one thing I told them was like, hey, look, I'll be honest, I have my mature groups do that. I have my more novice groups have the vibraphones play together. It's just one of those like not everything we do is like, hey man, this is the way you're supposed to front ensemble. We have our setups in a certain way that like it's just one of those like, well, we feel like it acoustically gives us the best sound. And if that puts more challenge on the players, well, then so be it. Like they're that level to they can accept that challenge and conquer it. But at the same time, at some of the high schools that are more novice, like you don't need to be lighting things on fire like that. So just know that the challenges of having these vibe players spread out that far, that's always going to exist. But the fruitful part of it is what we get to listen to acoustically. You're hearing all these metallic voices come from a surround sound point of view.
Yes.
And it's great. It's awesome. If you have hotshot front ensemble, go for it. But if you know that you got a bunch of kids who are playing oboe for the fall season, you don't need to ruin their lives that hard, man. So yeah, that was one thing I just wanted to chat about there. Shelby, did you want to? I know you said you'd take on the last part of performance.
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about that. You know, when we said we were only going to talk for an hour.
Yeah, I know.
Can you share that? Can you share the presentation so I can see it?
Yes, ma'am.
And honestly, this is something that, I mean, we could talk about this alone for an entire clinic. But all in all, it is becoming more important, whether it's like WGI, DCI, BOA, like whatever you are doing. I feel like this is an integral part of getting your students to buy in and to really love the activity and really portray to the audience what it is they're trying to convey through their music. When it comes to performance energy or vibe or whatever it is you want to call, like what the kids look like when they play, the most important thing to me is that every student is on the same page emotionally and energy wise. So like if you're playing a ballad, you don't need to have one kid that looks like he's just like like cranking out some notes, because that automatically throws the audience member kind of out of perspective. So everybody needs to look like and reflect what the music is, what the music sounds like. And honestly, sometimes it is challenging to get students to do that. I mean, even at a higher level, if you haven't been challenged before to also perform while you play, then it can be a little bit awkward. So it is important to talk about that, like as a group, and not to necessarily define it too hardcore. Like you don't have to say, oh, everybody needs to be prepping this way and moving exactly this way. Because I want to see a little bit of individuality, and I want to see a little bit of that performer, what they bring to the table. Just so long as we all are starting from the same point, and more importantly, the music should take precedent. So like anything you're doing with your body or your face or how you're moving, as long as it's not affecting your notes and your rhythms, then cool. It gets a little dangerous. And I've seen this a lot with younger players too. When you're moving your body so much that like your technique is changing and you start missing notes, and you're just, the music has to come first. So unified energy within the context of the music. What I mean by that is just like, make sure you don't have a group that is only acting and performing when they're not playing, because that's not really worth it, right? If you look all labored when you're playing and you look all tense and then you stop and you're automatically like a character in your show, it takes the viewer away from the entire experience. So you need to have some continuity performance-wise, whether you're playing or not, right? The other thing you got to think about is like, what tools do you have within your own body that you can use to portray an emotion that goes along with the music? So like, yeah, okay, so I have my legs and I can pulse together. Yeah, but you also have, like Rick talked about earlier, the chin and like where your head is. You even have your eyes and different parts of the face that can truly communicate a big message to the audience if they're used in the right way. Same thing even with how we think about like a legato stroke and a staccato stroke. Like scientific studies prove that if somebody sees you playing a note like this, like a long legato, gooey, warm, resonant note, if you come off the bar looking that way, then the audience perceives it that way. And to their ear, it sounds like that, even regardless of what it sounds like. There are ways to trick them based on what you look like. So without going like too deep into it, I just want to make sure that you know, like, that's something to consider, is what do you look like on your face? What tension are you holding in your body that might be communicating something to the audience that you don't want communicated? It might not be appropriate for that part in the music. And it does change your sound from a perception point. Not always technically does it change your sound, but if someone's watching you and you look like you're playing soft, then their brain says, oh, this is a soft part, or oh, this is a chill part. Yeah. And yeah, encourage your young performers to experience with this early on, because same thing as earlier. If they don't know it's hard, then they will just do it. If you are pushing like theatrics and like emotional connection from your young students when they're in middle school, or even like freshmen and sophomores in high school, then by the time they get to college, or by the time they get to drum corps, and we say, okay, everybody perform, that'll just happen, versus having to like, there's always like that shy kid that's just like, oh no, I just have to play my notes in time. That's only like this much of the job. You also have to be an artist, and you also have to be a musician, and you have to make people want to watch you. So start diving into that with your younger kids. Do some experiments to see where they're at in terms of like, for example, like sometimes with my super young, super shy students, I'll have them face each other, like turn our keyboards toward each other. And it'll be like, okay, this time when we play the C scale, I want you to look angry at each other. And you can start at that basic level of words like angry or happy or sad, and then expand on that, because music has way more than just those, and humans have way more than just those emotions. But if we start from an early age, giving kids encouragement to do that, then our activity will only continue to improve, and like it makes the music better because people are buying into it, and it makes it to where the audience feels it more, because it's like spoon feeding them, like, hey, this is what you're supposed to feel at that point. I want students to do that younger so that when they get older, it's just, you don't even think about it. It just happens.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, from a performer standpoint, that was one of my favorite parts of playing in groups, is just seeing really how we could push that and how I could connect emotionally with the music and then get other people to feel the same thing.
Yeah, 100% on that. The last slide is just basically our contact information, our Instagram, TikTok, and we also have a Facebook, guys, just checking out just the Cavaliers. You can go and follow us there. Our emails are pretty much our first and our last names, just a dot separating it. So you got rick.drury@cavaliers.org, shelby.sheldon, randy.cifuentes. And let me stop sharing here for a second and kind of come back to our main screen. I do want to say this to our audience and anybody, educators or potential auditionees. We are a lot more accessible now than our texts were when we were marching. I'm not saying that we were marching decades ago, but I mean, right now, like I do have. I have a student from Japan who's going to be meeting with me at midnight, because our times are just odd like that, obviously. And he is that dedicated to wanting to audition and to be successful in his audition. And so we have, and he's just not the only one, but like the three of us, myself, Rick, and Shelby, trust me, we are not going to tell you no if you say, hey, I'm interested in auditioning. I want to play just a few things. Can you give me some tips? We will never tell you no. I want everybody, on this stream to understand that even if let's just say we end up helping you out, and you don't make the group this year, but you end up going somewhere else and you contribute to their group, that's fine, man. Trust me. Like one thing that I feel like I grew a large respect from this past season that I haven't before, was just looking at all the other front ensembles and looking at all the other front ensemble texts and just being like, man, I feel you. Yeah, I feel you, man, because this is not easy right now. And we're here to pull it all together. So we have a big love for everybody in the activity and a high respect for everybody. Don't think that we're just picking our noses up at anybody, because we know all these groups have very talented players, and we just, if you choose to come to us, and we hope you do, just understand that ultimately we just want to give you the best and the most positive educational experience that you can have, and the vibe that the Cavaliers has is definitely a very strong brotherhood. Oscar, who was a first-year member, he had auditioned for us. How many times did you audition for us, Oscar? You're on mute, big dog. 2 years?
I auditioned in 20, but I was too scared to audition in 19.
Yeah, and I'm glad he said that, because I mentioned to the members before we left. I told him, even if you don't just bring your friends out, like, oh man, my friend's really good, he's gonna come next year. No, bring all your friends, because even the younger ones that aren't necessarily, they may not make it this year. Dude, that's fine. Like, you may audition this year and next year, and maybe not make it to your third year, but you're just delaying your timeline further when you don't come out. And honestly, like, just go for it, and send these guys out there, directors. When we have our camps hosted in our various satellite camps that we have, send them out. We want nothing more than to send them back to your school, and you'll be like, dang, dude, you're a better player already. And as a public school educator, I guarantee you, if you take my students, you went and rehearsed them for an entire weekend for hours, dude, go for it. And we will more than happily take them and make them a much better player as best as we can, and return them back to you with a good, positive experience and a much positive mindset on how they need to go about their approach to getting to that level of playing that they want to get to and you want to get to. It also just helps out your entire studio when you have that kind of player in there. with such a good positive vibe. But so yeah, that's basically my gist. If anybody else wants to kind of talk about the auditions or whatnot, kind of the closing statements here.
Be looking for new information pretty soon. I've spoken to everybody just a little bit about this. We are revamping our audition process. You will find new material. You will find new jargon, new ways of thinking about things, new exercises. It's coming down the turnpike. In fact, I have a great phone call with Cliff tomorrow to talk about the groundworks of all that. So that information is coming out very soon. To piggyback off what Randy said, we are in the business of wanting to help you. Why? Because we want you to be strong. We want you to be the strongest you can be, because the stronger you are, the stronger you're going to make us. And that's ultimately, what we want to do is empower you. So please reach out. We're fun people. We're good human beings. We want to do our best to give you as much education and experience that we can give you.
Yeah. And I don't want to, you said it all, man, but I'm just, it got me thinking back to like my first drum corps audition I ever went to. I think I was like 15 and my tech was like, hey, you should go to this. So I went totally clueless, definitely got cut, a hardcore cut. But man, I left that weekend going like, I didn't know that there were modes, and I didn't know that like people could be that clean and that this rhythm existed. And it just blew my mind. And then from ages like 15 until I graduated high school and eventually went on and did drum corps stuff, I was hungry for it. Like I left that weekend with the fire. So yeah, send your students, even if you feel like maybe it might not, it might be a little above their playing level. They'll still learn stuff and they'll still maybe get a taste for it, and maybe it'll light a fire under them. And if you're a student thinking about auditioning, man, step one is just show up. Like so many people say, like Oscar was saying, like you think about it and you're like, I want to go to this audition. I want to mark. Oh, I'm not going to make it. I'm not prepared. And then you don't go. And guess what? Sometimes like a lot of people don't go. So then like it, maybe if you would have gone, like who knows what would have happened. So step one, show up and bring your friends and just learn stuff. You'll get better no matter what.
I mean, what is it? You're afraid of getting cut? I mean, like Randy, my rookie year, I got cut, didn't I? And then I got called 10 days before tour started. Hey, it's time to fill a hole. So I mean, like getting cut is not scary. It's not at all. So come, embrace, be around good people, make great people.
Shelby, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
How many years did you, or how many attempts did you, give before you made a course?
You made the Cavaliers.
Well, admittedly, okay, so like after that, I did wait a year or two before I auditioned again. But there is a certain drum corps that I won't name that I auditioned. Man, I auditioned for this corps like 3 times, and then my 3rd year, I didn't end up marching there because I wanted to go somewhere else. But if you want it bad enough, and if that's where you want to be, just keep showing up. And so many, man, I've bonded with so many people over like, hey man, were you cut from Blue Coats? So was I. Like, just keep going. Just keep going back and figure it out. And you'll find a place that'll make you better if you want it bad enough.
And now you're teaching one of the top drum corps. So wow, that's a huge, and that was my point. Joe Hobbs mentioned something similar, how many attempts he had and was rejected, and now he's with the Blue Coats, teaching the Blue Coats. So it's a big testament, and I 100% we should send our students, and I'm glad that Oscar shared his experience. He didn't go because he was scared. You shared your experience, Shelby, and it's just gonna make things better. It's just gonna make things better. It's gonna make our studios better. It's gonna make the student better. It's gonna carry on individually to the other students. I think yes, you're spot on. Yes.
Yeah, one little fact that I thought was pretty neat. I was talking to Shelby about is our front ensemble this past year was very diverse, and more diverse than I remember it being. I mean, you have Oscar Torres Angel Soto also on the marimba line, who's from the Rio Grande Valley. We had Patrick as well on the vibraphone. I mean, we are definitely like a very, how do I say, I guess, forward-thinking group of people. I think just DCI in general, but that was one thing I was really happy to see. Was just now the younger kids can look up to this front ensemble and see someone like Oscar and be like, hey, like, that guy can do it, I can do it too,
Yes.
and in a really positive way. And I was told that too when I was marching, from people from the Valley, and they're like, man, like when I saw you play in there, I was like, oh, he can do it. I could make it too. Yeah, dude, go for it. Like, just put yourself out there. I want one of my life, mantras I live by is I never live by the words "what if." I just go for it. Don't the two words "what if" are very ugly. Like, what if I had? What if I did? What if? Just don't. Just go for it, man. And I guarantee you, Rick, Shelby, and I will welcome you with open arms. We'll help you as much as we possibly can. Right now, we are in the off season. This is the time to be Facebook messaging us, emailing us, finding Oscar Torres and sending him emails and sending some of the guys some videos like, hey, what do you think about this? I mean, seriously, we're one big family of a unit, and if you want to be in this group, and if you're going to be showing that kind of work ethic, I just can't imagine that you wouldn't have the hands to show up on by the time November, December shows around. Those people generally have hands that are very dedicated and have high work ethic. So my inbox has a few messages, but I would love to see more. I know Rick and Shelby and Oscar would love to see more messages. Hey, I want to make the group like, what can I send you a video of me playing green? Dude, send it. I'll be more than happy. And like I said, I'm about to get on a video call at midnight with my marimba downstairs, and I'm just gonna literally play with this kid from Japan, so he can get better, and maybe maybe I'll get better at teaching too, because there's a language barrier there. So it's gonna be a good time. So again, our inboxes are open, guys. Send them on in.
Guys, Randy, Rick, Shelby, and Oscar. Wow. I'm still mind blown. My jaw hit the floor when I saw you play, man. It's amazing and very inspiring from in so many levels. From the performer, I can do that too. From the teacher, wow, my students can do that too. I can push them to that level. And so yeah, bravo. And guys, staff, so proud of you guys of what you have done, and the way that you have raised the bar during a world pandemic. And you brought it. And yeah, that's an understatement. These kids, like Oscar, can play amazing, but they would not have gotten there without solid leadership. So you guys need to hear it. I think very well deserved, very well earned. Proud to have you here. And we went on for 2 hours, guys. Uh, I learned this, and I want to say this. I learned this doing our live events, which Randy, you've been to at times, and sometimes we would have towards the end, we usually would have like the headlining artists, and then we would have somebody come and go like, okay, it's time, you need to tell him to stop. And then we're like, no, like, he's in the zone. That's when the you least wants to interrupt the educator or the artist, because that's when he's in the zone and he's gonna deliver something that you're gonna benefit from. And guys, viewers, you have a 2-hour clinic that you can space out 30 minutes a day. You can keep your kids 30 minutes after, or set a time where you can watch it, and very well invested time. And then plus they're telling you you can reach out. So do it. And I know we've been talking. guys, and this is not the last time you're gonna be here. This is your home, and you're welcome here anytime. Oscar, I'm so glad I got to see you and meet you. Keep it up, man. I can't wait to see what you're gonna accomplish. You got a long way to go, brother. Yes, yes. Well, without any further ado, um, we have a lot to use, a lot to munch on, right? And nibble as for the year. Any did you want to say something, Randy?
No, I
Oh,
think we're good.
okay, awesome. Rick?
I'm fine. Thank you so much, sir, for having us.
No, it's my pleasure. It's a huge honor to have you here, guys. Shelby?
No, just thank you. And thank you to Oscar for making it happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. He is a real MVP today. Yes.
Yeah.
Many
Guys-
days the real MVP.
Guys, see you on the next one. Watch our content, share it, follow, like, subscribe. You won't be disappointed. Today is a perfect example. See you on the next one. Oh, Thomas Lang, Rob Brown, and a few other drum corps educators in the pipeline, guys. Stay tuned. Follow, like, so you can be receiving this at the moment that it's going to be coming. Love you guys. Stay safe. Get your vaccine. Wear your masks, please. Love you guys.